Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you're listening to this. So excited to have ANITA Wong on with me today. She's going to talk to us about how to become digitally savvy in this ever-changing world that we live in, and how that relates to you being a first-time leader and understanding what your direct reports need. And so this show is called On Being a First Time Leader. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help anyone who needs help as a first time leader. If you're there, shout us out in the chat and we can interact and talk with you. And I'm going to let ANITA introduce herself to get us started. Hey, ANITA, coming from the Great Britain.
Yes, I'm in London in the UK, so our accents are a little bit different, which might give a little bit more spin to the live. So thank you for having me on your show. It's really exciting to be here. So like Joan said, I'm ANITA Wong and I'm a digital visibility strategist, and I help entrepreneurs understand how to manage the tech in social media. So basically that means that I specialize in Instagram, Facebook and video marketing, and all the changes that happen. You know, one moment you can go online and everything's changed because there's been an update and nobody's told you about it. So it's being able to actually cope with those types of differences, and then the strategies to help you grow on those platforms.
Awesome. And before we got started, you were telling us about how this could be very important information for a first-time leader. So can we start with that? I have some other points that we talked about when we were in the green room, so to speak, and just talk about how a first-time leader, what they need to know about supervising people in regards to tech.
Yes, I think it's really important, especially if you, like you say, if you're a first-time leader and you have a team underneath you. It's to realize that what you know as a leader, your team might not necessarily know, and it comes back down to that whole, you know, what you're good at. The reason that you've got your leadership role is because you're good at doing that, and it doesn't matter where you are and what work sphere that you're working in. If you understand it, you've got to be aware that your team members may not understand exactly how to do something, and to try and have an open relationship with your team members. You know, still keep that leadership role in there so that you don't have that friction that might happen if that breaks down, but just to have that open relationship and open voice, so that if they do get stuck, that they feel very comfortable about asking you how to do it, basically.
You know, as we were talking in the green room, do you find that it has anything to do with someone's age?
Well, there is a definite aspect of age, but I don't think it's to do with age per se. I think it's to do with your involvement in tech as you've gone through your life and what you've done. So, for instance, I used to be an ICU nurse. So without really realizing, I was being exposed to tech quite a lot because, of course, all the machinery that I was using, all the pumps and drugs and all those sorts of equipments that I was using to help care for those patients, I was being exposed to technology in a different aspect. So when of course then I moved into this sort of digital marketing world when I had my children, the tech didn't really sort of hit me too hard. But I think if you've been in an environment, especially in a corporate environment, where you've moved maybe to work as an entrepreneur yourself, you've usually had a team that does the tech. You know, you can pick up the phone. Hey, my computer's not working. Can somebody come down and have a look? Or maybe you can just log in and fix it for me. That doesn't happen when you're at home on your own working, because when the computer stops working, most people just go, oh, it's not working, you know. So I think it depends really on how much you've been exposed. So if you were in a field of work in your corporate life or whatever you did beforehand, and you had some exposure to tech, then I think when you then go into this life of running your own business and being a leader or running a team, then it does help a little bit more. So age is probably a little excuse that some use, but it is a big thing, because we, you know, I'm the same we didn't grow up with mobile phones or technology or Wi-Fi or computers. You know, I remember when I got my first mobile phone, I was actually nursing away from home, and I thought, well, maybe I should just have one, because like I used to live in the nurses' accommodation. It was like corridor of 20 rooms with one phone at the end, and nobody ever answered it. You know, my mum used to ring and be like, I'm not answering that. It's like way down there, and it's probably not for me anyway, because everyone's would have the same number. So it was only through necessity that I bought a mobile phone, and then it was like the price to use it was extortionate. So it used to just be there for an emergency. So I definitely think that technology, the advancements of technology and the way we use it in our marketing, especially as a team leader in the environment that we work in, has definitely changed. So yeah, age does have some aspect to it, because I think confidence does as well. I think that's another thing, is actually believing in your own, you know, capabilities, and actually being open to accept that there's technology and there's change. Yeah, definitely.
The reason I ask you that is because it's just interesting. What I say is I'm closer to the finish line than I was to the starting line. And my daughter is a millennial, and I'll ask her questions and she'll say, why are you asking me that? She'll say, I'm a millennial only in age. I know nothing about tech. And then I've had bosses that are just like, and in all honesty, I have been that boss. Instead of learning it, just asking my people to do it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back down to that exposure. I think I suppose it's like, what do you use tech for? And if we talk about that social media or that work-based tech as a leader, what have you actually used social media before? Or what have you used it, you know, have you used it in a business environment or in a team leading environment? And I think that's where it sort of comes into play, because like you say, she may be a millennial by age, but she's not tech savvy in the way that you probably think she should be. But I think there's a definite difference between using tech as a social tool and as a business tool in a leadership environment and a work environment. There's definitely differences, because my children are 22, 18 and 17, and the 22-year-old and the 18-year-old are doing sort of like little entrepreneurial things where they're actually starting to use social media, more of a business orientated tool. And I try to tell them that, you know, you need to use it differently. No, I don't, Mum. What are you talking about? You know, and then they come back a week later and go, well, no one's looking at anything. Nobody's seeing anything I'm putting up. And I'm like, well, that's because you're not using it as a business tool. You're using it as a social tool. So there's different ways of using social media depending on what you want to use it for. And if you're a leader in a team, don't just think that because you've got millennials or 20-somethings in your team that they know exactly how to use the tools that we have at our fingertips, because that's just not, it's an assumption that one needs to brush aside, because there are plenty of older people who have a much better knowledge base than the younger ones when it comes to using digital as a tool for your business, whether that be spreadsheets or, you know, working out how to do something, you know. And there's a lot of tools that we use as entrepreneurs that the younger generation really need to be exposed to. And I think they've been exposed to it a little bit during the pandemic, because like Zoom, for instance, or Restream, like we're using now to live stream. These tools have been around for a little while, but there was a whole massive group of the population that weren't using these tools pre-pandemic. And then suddenly, oh, Mum, I'm using this snazzy tool called Zoom to talk to my teachers. Yes, I use that all the time. What do you mean you use it all the time? You know, and I've been live streaming using Restream all the time. What? I didn't know that. You know, so it's the exposure that one gets as we go through life. And I think there are so many of these tools that we use as entrepreneurs and leaders and business owners that a lot of people still haven't been exposed to. So definitely as a leader of a team, one mustn't presume that people know how to use them, because I think that's bad leadership in a way. If you do presume that people know how to use them without qualifying them, ask them a few questions. So have you used this before? Have you seen anyone else use it? What's your experience with it? And it gives them that opportunity to say, actually, no, I haven't. Would you mind showing me? So I think that's super important.
In the when we were discussing before we went live, you talked about to just be aware and to not assume.
Yeah, definitely. I think that goes down to even the basics of our marketing, like what you do as a business owner and what I do as a business owner. What we know, don't assume that others know it. Even if it's the most basic things that we do every day in our business and the tools that we use, don't presume that other people will know how to use them, because I suppose it goes back down to exposure. Unless they've had a need to use it, or they've been exposed to it in some form or another during maybe their training or what they did in their previous work, they wouldn't necessarily know. And even if they come out of university with a degree in something, they might not know the latest strategy that goes with that tool. So, there's always room for I would say just keep an open vocab with them and be very open and allow your team to ask you, and maybe have regular meetups with them to make sure that they're on track and that they're not falling behind because the tech's worrying them.
Right. Yeah, I always advise leaders to have at least a once a week with their direct reports, and then that direct report can have a meeting with his or her reports. Yeah, so that everybody knows the information, and it develops a relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
An intimacy when it's just you and your direct report, no one else is listening. Sometimes people can be more honest.
Yeah, like an appraisal where you just catch up, make sure that they're okay, what they're doing, and I think that's really important. And also, like in a team, maybe ask everybody to contribute as well, because what you might be giving to one team member, somebody else in the team might find that a lot easier to do, and they may be struggling with something that the other team member might find easier to do. So sometimes if you're working in a team with the same goal or the same actual thing that you're doing, it might be easier just to actually put your hands up and say, who's more comfortable doing this type of work? Who feels more comfortable doing this, and vice versa. So
right.
Yeah.
Do you think it has to do with learning styles, if someone is auditory, visual, or kinesthetic?
Yeah, definitely. I think if your style of learning is down one route, then definitely if you're more of like a visual, then I think tech's much easier if you can visualize what you're trying to achieve. Because I think sometimes with technology, whether it be like maybe planning out a funnel or planning out a circuit board or whatever, if you can actually visualize it, you can almost like put the pieces together before you even do it, I think. So yeah, different learning styles definitely would make a big difference to people's understanding and confidence, I think, in what they do, because I think confidence is a massive barrier when it comes to tech, because a lot of people believe that they can't do it before they've even tried to do it, and that may come back from a bad experience with something, or just listening to other people. If you're in a room, if you're in a team and someone's going, it's really hard to do this, it's like I'm really struggling, the next time you get given it, you'll be like, oh, it's really hard, without really giving it a go before you make that assumption. So yeah, definitely learning styles would definitely have something to do with people's confidence around tech.
And then I'm wondering, like, as a leader, if you well, my coaching philosophy is pies, and the first one is permission to be great is granted. So I think sometimes people don't feel comfortable around their leaders to be honest, because I have had so many times someone show me how to use a new program, and then I'll watch a YouTube video, and I'll watch another YouTube video, and hit here, boom, boom, done. And I'm like, wait, I didn't even get the first So to give people permission to say, hey, if I'm going too fast, slow me down. If I'm going too slow, I can go faster.
Yeah, definitely. I think it has to be that openness when it comes to collaborating with your team and how they're working, and everybody learns differently. That's why when I do my teaching videos, I'm always doing them sort of 5 minutes long, and they are, even I even get told that sometimes they're a little bit quick and they have to keep rewinding them to watch, but I always do it in a style that perhaps they can have their iPad next to them and they can like stop it while they actually action it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a real believer in that. So like you say, you can go onto YouTube and look at things, and that's where, you know, YouTube's a great resource for those sorts of videos for you as a leader and as a team. But you have to find the right YouTube channel to learn on, because everybody's teaching styles is different.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's learning styles are different. So you could be on YouTube, you could be hours looking for the right video that suits the way you learn. Mm-hmm. So I think when you do discover somebody who teaches in a way that you really connect, definitely subscribe to their channel and you know, ring that bell so that you get notified the next time they upload a video that you might find beneficial, because that's a definite, you know, YouTube is a massive, great resource, but it can also be a massive hole that you fall in because you can't find your answer. So definitely, if you have a particular learning style, really spend a bit of time to find that teacher that can help you. And if you're a leader, open that up to your team and say, you know, if anyone's seen anything good or they know of a different way of learning this, then, you know, feel free to share, because someone else in the team might benefit from that style of learning. Mm-hmm. Compared to what you're doing as the leader or the one in charge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other thing that came to mind when we were talking was, you know, people go for jobs and I'm at the interview and they say, do you have exposure to this system or that system or this system? And so what I wrote down was, I don't know that, but. So what's a good response when, you know, everyone says, I'm a quick learner. But if they say, you're at the interview and they say, are you familiar with, you know, doing business on Instagram? And you haven't done it. What do you say?
Well, I would say, to be honest, and say that you know, you haven't used it maybe as a business tool, but you've used it as a social tool, so you know your way around it. Because most people will know a platform. This goes back to that whole, do you use it as a social tool or a business tool? So I think most people have exposure to certain systems. Like, for instance, you know, Microsoft Excel, I know how to pretty much do a spreadsheet, but I wouldn't know how to do the sums on it or the summaries or those sorts of things. So I think you do have to be open. If you're going to go for a job interview and that's one of the main requirements, then you do need to be open and say, actually, I don't know how to do that. But yeah, you can say I'm a quick learner. Like, I know how to do all of these things. And if you point me in the right direction, I'll brush up on those skills before I start. You know, there's those sorts of things that you can do. Sometimes, like in an interview, you'll discover other qualities about the person that you'll want them to work with you, regardless of whether they know how to use that one little system or not. So I think just be honest. And I think most social tools that we use, like the digital marketing tools that most of us are exposed to, we've had that social exposure, and we've just got to learn how to use it as a business tool to get that exposure, because there's a little bit of a different way. You know, like when you use social, it's more about you and what you're doing and what your families and things are doing, whereas when you use social as a business tool, it's not about you, it's about the audience that you want to attract. It's about what you can give to them and what they need. So that's like, if you imagine, that's the sort of flip of the coin in a way. And I think you can use the knowledge that you know about that platform to help you like get that job, and then learn those sorts of strategies afterwards.
Well, I was going to ask you, what is the difference between social and business on the social platforms that we mostly know, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? And so you covered that a little bit more, is there anything else you want to tell us about that, what the difference is?
Well, I think the way that the tool itself is the same. So obviously, if you look at the tech, like LinkedIn, for example, it's evolving quite dramatically at the moment because it is turning a little bit more into a social tool because it's bringing in some of those social elements from other platforms, like with the stories. That's obviously come over from Snapchat and then Instagram and Facebook. So you've got your stories, but you've got your live video, which is, that's a social tool because you can get to know people better, but it's also a business tool because we're doing a live stream like we're doing today with Restream into LinkedIn. It makes a difference. I think it's your mindset when it comes to using the tools differently for business and for social, and how you approach it. So that's to do with strategy. The way you use it, actually, there is a bit of tech in there as well, because I think as a social user, we sort of float across the top of it. Mm-hmm. As a business user, we dig into all the aspects, or that we're supposed, well, one would want to dig into all the aspects to use it. So for example, if we look at Instagram, in Instagram itself, there's probably 8 or 9 different ways that you can reach an audience. But as a social user, you probably just put a photo up and just say, hey, this is me at the weekend. Mm-hmm. But as a business owner, you're going to be looking at using it to generate leads, to get people to sign up for your email marketing, to sell your products, to engage with an audience by doing live streams. This understanding all of the tools within that social platform will really help you to, number one, understand the tech in there, and number 2, understand how you can maximize your use of that platform as a business owner. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the difference, is that when we're using our social tools as a social element, it's you put the odd thing up and it's all about you at all. Like, it's a social interactive platform. So you might put a photo up and ask, well, so what are you doing at the weekend? Stuff like that. But if you're a business tool, you're using it more about what you can do for the other people in your network, so that you can actually find out what it is that they do, ask them whether they want to know anything about what you do. So it's all about them, answering them, helping them alleviate their problems, giving them a solution, and offering them the opportunity to touch base with you and work with you. And that comes from using it as a more of a business strategic tool to capture leads, because ultimately all these social platforms that we're on, it's a way of us bringing ourselves to our audience, but also giving our audience value. And then we give them so much value that they go, actually, I'd like to learn a little bit more. And then having those systems in place for them to actually come and connect with you. And I think if you understand the tech in those tools, that's how you'll start to get the leads. So like with LinkedIn, they can leave a message under this video. They could actually connect with you. They could message you in the DMs. You can even have a Zoom meeting in the DMs in LinkedIn now, or we go on to Google Meet instantly. It's great. You can put a video in there, do voice messages, all those sorts of things that you can do to connect with your audience just in LinkedIn. And if you look at LinkedIn on the surface, most people think it's, let's just post up, then what happens, So it's thinking about all of the things that you can utilize in each social platform to connect, really, isn't it? It's all about connecting. I think that's where the live video, like what we're doing today, is connecting and having a conversation and sharing value so that people can connect with us. Like, I think that's a really good way of using it as a business tool, rather than, and of course you can put your social aspect into it and your social element into it, because like for me at the weekends, we're just coming out of lockdown a little bit in England, so we're allowed to do sports now. So I'm back on my BMX and I'm on the track at the weekend, so I'm of course sharing that in my social, because that's important to me as a person. So you can mix the two together quite easily.
And you don't have 2 separate identities, 2 separate accounts, a business account and a personal.
No, I don't, because I tend to use social as a business tool. I actually asked this question in my group today. If you weren't a business owner, would you be on so many social media platforms? I would probably say no, I wouldn't be, because I wouldn't say I'm a private person, but I would say that I don't share a lot about my family on social. Like some people will tell their all. I don't really do that as much. Of course, I talk about my family and my friends on social, but I use it more as a business tool. So I think if I were not working as a business owner, I'd probably be on Facebook, because that's where a lot of my social groups are. Like for my BMX, there's a big community on there for
Right.
BMX and things like that. I know it's a bit crazy, but for business, I think that's the difference. I think if you can be on social for business, or you can be on social for social. So I'm pretty much on social for business most of the time, but Saturdays and Sundays I'm probably on Facebook a lot more for BMX. Sharing the odd picture of my lunch.
Right. Well, after you do your BMX, you're entitled to a big lunch.
Yeah, and we're allowed to go to the pubs and have lunch outside at the moment. So I haven't done it yet, but because
Okay.
we weren't allowed to do any of that, all the pubs were shut.
Right. I heard that. Yeah.
So they've just opened up now. So I'm letting everybody get that out of their system, so it's a little bit calmer. And then I'll go and have a coffee or something and just sit outside and do something normal.
Just be somewhere besides my house.
Yes, exactly. Just go outside and just like socialize with people and speak to people. So yeah, it's quite good. So tech, we use tech all the time. So I think it's important to not be scared of it. And as a leader, definitely be aware of how you can use it in a group setting as well.
Well, now more and more you're seeing people use tech to entice people to come work for them. They say, "Hey, we're hiring."
Yeah,
and if you
definitely on LinkedIn have got that little thing you can put on your profile, haven't they, that says that you're looking for work or you're open to communication. I mean, the thing is, social, I'm saying that, there's a difference between how you use your social media between business and social, but social media is a place where everybody hangs out because it's a social element, and it's a really good way of connecting people from all over the globe. Look at us, I'm in London, you're in the US, so it's a way of connecting. So if you are a business owner or a leader trying to find someone to work in your team, then there are lots of different ways that you can reach out. Number one, in your online community to find out if anyone that knows anybody that could work with you. And then the second way is to actually publicly ask if anyone wants the job, if anyone would fit into what you want.
Well, I was thinking that you can create a desire to work there by your postings. So say I'm following you. Say you're a big company like Salesforce or something, and I'm following the posts and I'm like, wow, this looks like a pretty cool place to work. Or it's
you can definitely evoke desire to work, because that's the beauty of social media, is that you can show behind the scenes. So you can show what's happening, like you say, if there's a big company, or if the company gives free lunches, or if there's a nice community around the company, and they show that off in social, you get to see more of the company than you used to be able to see. And I think that's where you can start to use your team to sell your company for you, because that's another thing, is not to detach your team members from social media. Obviously you need to make sure that they stick on brand and that they are upholding your brand ethos and your brand messaging, but they are the best people to sell your company for you, is your employees. Definitely. And especially social media allows them to do that so much more, because you've got that freedom to tag the company, to use particular branded hashtags in your business tools, and all those things. So yeah, definitely, if you the desire to work at big companies would be great, and it's a definite advantage to use the tech at your fingertips, like, and on the social to do that, definitely.
Mhm. Yeah, I spent most of my life working in government, and so I created this PowerPoint that we turned into a video. 10 reasons why you should apply for this job, why you should come work here and apply for this job, and it was really fun. And then it got put out on social media all over the place, and we got a lot more applications than we had before.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's a great way of doing it. I mean, I think that's the advantage, especially with video, because you can take like snapshots of what you've been doing over the last 6 months in your business, and if you've done any events, if you've done any charity events, or you've done any team building things, and you can just wrap it all up into a short little video. And even if you're not looking for people to work for you, you just put it out there, because people like to see what's happening in a business. They like to see that their employees are respected and valued, and I think when you have that transparency in a business and it comes across in their social, then I think it's a great way of attracting people to work with you. And tech helps you do that. I mean, we're surrounded by tech, and it is an advantage. And I think, like, going back to like the whole idea of this discussion, is that you have to like embrace it and not be scared of it, and just allow it to flow. And if you make a mistake with it, you make a mistake. You just you learn from it as well. We, as a team member, you just ask each other, you have support around you. But definitely it's a really good way of creating that FOMO in a way. I want to work there, I want to, even when you watch films, like when I watched that, I can't remember what it's called, but there was a film about Google when they were, they got a nice layout, and then, free lunches and snooze pods. I want to work there. That looks great. I want to do that. So I think back to when I first started working, it was nothing like that. I was like, oh, I want to do that. So
yeah, we were lucky if we had a vending machine.
Yeah, exactly. Have coffee in a plastic cup. It's like, and they weren't very nice coffees.
No,
they were awful.
Exactly. So that it's making me think that, and let me hear if you would agree or disagree, that social media in business, and even small businesses, I'm talking about people with 100, less than 100 employees, is underutilized.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because they have like their small marketing team. And I think sometimes companies are scared to use social media because they're worried in case somebody does something wrong, and then it looks bad on them. But I think the majority of the time, a lot of companies see social media as a way of just marketing their business without realizing that it's actually a way of sharing their business. And it's a really good tool, like you say, for smaller, like under 100 employees, to actually bring people into their business in a way that they haven't done before. And it opens the doors to so many different opportunities. So definitely embrace it rather than fear it. I think that would be one of the things, especially nowadays with this whole digital world where so many more people are online. And it will go back to some sort of normality, but I think a lot of people have learned that we can function without actually having to leave. We can do things on the go, and social media and technology and digital, I'm sitting here, I've got my laptop, I've got my iPad, I've got my phone. I don't need to take my iPad and my laptop out with me anywhere now. I can just do everything on my mobile. And if I want a slightly bigger screen, I take my iPad out. I can still fit that in my bag. And it's like walking around with a computer. So I think companies can really make a big difference utilizing social media to share their brand and their brand messaging, and their values definitely can be really shared. And that will really attract people to their brands, whether it's a business or a product. Showing how things are made and how your employees are are enjoying their work and the environment that you're working, that sells the products and the services much better than putting a picture of it up on Instagram. You know, having a behind the scenes of what's happening, even if it's a photograph of all the team together having a meeting or a board meeting, then it just explaining what it is so much more real than you putting a post up saying, hey, these are the next trainers that are coming out. You know, where you show somebody designing it, maybe all talking about the colorway for it, that would probably sell it more than having the finished product. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, how many shows are there now on how things are made and stuff like that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, but those people like to know. It's like toothpaste. You know, how do they get those stripes in that tube? I love watching those sorts of programs.
Exactly.
And that technology has evolved so much from like one great big massive machine to probably something very tiny now that does it. But those sorts of videos are always really, really good. And if you don't make something, you're still doing something. I mean, I don't make things, I do things. I'm a service provider, but I can do a little video of my studio, you know, my setup here, or, you know, how to use the live streaming tool that we're both using now to do this. You know, there's all sorts of different things that you can do that bring people into your zone in a way that they wouldn't they wouldn't necessarily have been involved in before.
And then that makes me think that there's a lot of support out there, and that most people don't want to ask for help. You know, I'm too lost, I'm too late to stop and ask for directions, right? So you're just going to be later and more lost. But yeah, so ask for help.
Yeah, definitely ask. And no one's too late to start learning how to do social media. You know, then you're not too late to start live video. You're not too late to do a video. You're not too late to go onto Instagram. You know, those things, you're not too late to do any of that, because that's all, it's never going to disappear. It's here for a long time. And I was having this discussion the other day with somebody about, like, oh, am I too late to get onto YouTube? No, there may be millions of people on YouTube, but you are you and you're unique. So you'll bring that uniqueness onto YouTube, and you'll find your tribe and you'll find your following. So definitely, you're not too late to start anything. Not too late to start a business. You know, you're definitely not too late to start tackling the tech. I mean, I've even got my mum onto FaceTime in you know, and she didn't even know how to hold the iPad up, you know. So anyone can do it now, you know. So definitely.
Right. That reminds me of that I hear a lot that leaders are short-staffed, that there's not enough employees, or the employees that apply aren't qualified, things like that. So you could start now to build your reputation of enticing people to come work for you.
Yeah, that's right. And also give them an idea of what it is that you do. Because if you do those, like, behind the scenes, oh, we work with this tool, you know, this is how we connect with our other, you know, like, at the moment, you could be a leader and your team could be all over the world.
Right.
And you bring everybody together into, say, like, either a Zoom room if there's lots of people. You can even do it inside a Restream, bring, you know, up to 10, is it 6 or 10 people in, and you can have a conversation and the team meeting in one place. So it's definitely a good time to share what you're doing as a business online, and you can drop those, like, little seeds of information about what it is that you do, the tools that you use. Then when somebody does apply for your job, they've probably been following your company for a while and wanting to work for you for a while, and they've seen it, and actually that gives you the opportunity to see whether they've actually done a little bit of research about you as well. Because if they then say, oh, I've been watching your show every week, you're going to be, oh, really? You know, and that shows that they're interested. It goes both ways, really, I suppose. You know, I suppose it's like, if I think back to when I was nursing, if I wanted to go to a different unit to work, I would just pick up a magazine that used to have all the jobs in, look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks quite good. Then I'd have to go physically to that hospital to have a little look round at the unit, you know, either before or after I'd applied for the post. And that would be your decision maker. Whereas now you can go online, you can have a look at the history of the business, you can have a look at some of the milestones that business has achieved, and you can take that as the person joining the team into the team with you, and that enhances everything. If you as a team leader are sharing that information out on the internet, then it's there for others to pick up, and of course that will probably, you know, make it easier for people to want to work with you and find out information about your business as well. So definitely, and there's a lot of companies that don't do that, like you say, smaller companies with maybe 100 employees. They and especially those companies that have been established for a while, they might not think that there's a need to do that, but actually there is a need for them to move into this digital world in a way. I mean, they've been pushed into it a little bit with what's happened over the last 18 months, but even before then, I've worked with some companies local to me where they probably only got a couple of computers in the room and they're not on any social media. And it's like, wow, you know, where do you get your work from? Oh, just word of mouth, or, you know, and but of course that dries up after a while. There's only so many people that you know. So you need to be out there so that you can be seen by everybody.
And if, back to something that you said earlier, if there is a marketing or a social media position, can I still, how does that work? Can I still create stuff, or do I have to go through that person? Or
no, I think it depends on how you, usually they employ somebody to do the social media marketing to run campaigns for a particular reason. So say like if you have a social media marketing team, usually it's like, okay, so this team works on promoting this particular service that we do, and they'll run their campaign orientated towards that. But you as the team members or the leader can still put out your own take on what's happening about the business and about your company and your team, you know, especially if you're in a big corporation where you're the team leader of maybe a team of 10 or 20. That's almost like your little family, isn't it, of work that you're responsible for. That runs like in conjunction with another team and another team that are all focusing on the same thing. So you can always share elements of that in social to, you know, so that people can connect with you.
And then I'm not stepping on anyone's toes or anything.
I presume that you would have to work that out with the company in, you know, like there are certain teams that will do certain things, but a lot of companies use affiliates or influencers to do the promotions with them sometimes as well, a little bit more natural. So if you're using a particular tool, then the company whose tool you're using may reach out to you if you regularly use it, or you've got an audience that might benefit from it, and you know, those you know, that's taken up, that's quite big now, influencer marketing, where you would, you know, as a business owner, you would approach somebody to, yeah, that's right, you wear their shirt or you use their tool and you mention it whenever you're using it, or you recommend it to people, you know, like with Instagram or Facebook and video marketing, which is what I do. I often refer to the tools that I use for live streaming, because if you're using them, then you're going to recommend them to other people to use. So, and they can then always come back to you and ask for help if they get stuck using it. So, you know, that's something that I always do. So if I'm using a tool to help me grow my business, such as Restream, or another tool that I'm using, maybe a video editing tool that I use, I will recommend those things to my network, because hey, look, I'm using it. It makes it easy for me. I can live stream on LinkedIn. I can also live stream on YouTube and on Facebook at the same time.
Easy.
Why would you want to go from one to the other to the other? You know, it takes far too much time. I was in a Clubhouse room when it first started. I don't go in it that often anymore, but I was in there when it first started. And someone asked me, oh, I didn't realize that you could do multi-streaming. I used to do a live on Facebook, then I used to go over to YouTube and do it, and then I used to go over to LinkedIn and do it. I said, that takes you like 3 times as long to do that. You know, you do your live stream like we're doing now on multiple channels. The advantage is that, yes, you reach different audiences for your company or your business or your brand, but also if one channel suddenly doesn't work, you're still on the other channels for people to hop over to and carry on the conversation. So it's really beneficial to use technology to your advantage, and especially as a team leader, it's definitely something that you should embrace and support your team to embrace it as well, I think, because I think if you don't allow your team to embrace technology, and not just talking about social, but just generally helping, you know, using technology to help them do their business better and their service or what their role is better, then, you know, it benefits everybody. If you can offer them a quicker, more efficient way of working because you've discovered a tool that helps them do that job easier, then that benefits everybody in the long run. You know, and I think as a leader, you need to be aware of the different types of technologies that can help and support your team as well, and not be scared to try them out.
And each platform is just updating like rapid, especially over this pandemic. Like you just said, Zoom, you can do things we couldn't do 6 months ago. I have Acuity for my scheduling. They've upgraded to you can do this, you can do that. So now I need to sit down and see how many things am I paying for that are actually doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was actually having this discussion earlier as well. It's like so many different tools that we can use, but now that everything's evolved so much because everybody's been asking for things to do different things, you'll probably find that actually some of the things do the same. And it's like, okay, so what do I need to keep and what do I need to stop using? So that's another reason to keep up with what's happening with tech, because whenever I sort of go over a tool, and a lot of people go, well, I didn't know it did that. I've been paying for this to do that. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, like even the iPhone, today I was talking about recording your screen. And, you know, on the iPhone, you've got a setting that you can actually record your screen. But previously I was using a tool to do that. And it's like, you don't need to use that now because I can do it on here. So, or you find a tool that does it on the iPhone and the desktop or the laptop, so that they work together, and that makes it a lot easier, you know. So lots of different ways to embrace technology to make your productivity much better, basically.
And then one thing I wanted to we didn't touch on that I thought was important as a leader. Are we allowed to tell people what they can and can't post on their own private social media, or if something gets posted and on Facebook or Instagram or whatever on their own personal time, and now it's so out there that the company has found out about it and is so, do you have advice on how to be savvy on your social media?
Well, I always tell my daughters, actually, because they you know, they've grown up with mobile phones. I've always said to them that don't post anything on social that you wouldn't want to see in 10 years time, because it's always going to have an impact on what you're doing. So, you know, think about it. If you're going to go out and you do something silly and you take a picture and it goes online, when you're going for that job at that really, you know, that job you've been desperately wanting to do since you were like age 4, and they pull up that picture, that's it, game over. If it's not within what they think it's to be in. So I think, of course, you know, you can't control, as a business owner or a leader, you can't control what people put on social. But I think as a person, as an employee, you have to be aware that your actions do have an impact on where you work. And it doesn't matter what you do. I think you have to bear that in mind. And of course you can't, like, as a leader, you can't control what your employees put out there, but obviously there's a certain, I presume there's a certain level of self-responsibility you would expect from anybody who works for you, that they would uphold their own selves to a certain level, and you would expect them to do the same about your business. So, and of course, if they do something that brings your company into disrepute, then you'd obviously have to deal with it in a way that your company sets out in their employment contracts and their, you know, legislation. And I suppose if you're giving freedom to post on social, I presume nowadays big companies will probably have that in their contracts to say that, you know, these things are, you know, I don't know exactly, but I would presume that this world of digital, if a company wants their employees to represent their brand, then I presume that there would be guidelines that they would have to adhere to and be aware of. I think that would be the thing, is to make people aware if they are being asked to represent their company in any way, that you don't bring it into disrepute by your behavior in or out of work. I think that would probably be a bit fair thing. But I always tell my children that even if you take it down off of social, it's not gone. So always be careful about what you post. And I just think that that's mindful of everything that you do. You know, being polite and being aware and having empathy for people. You know, I think that's just, you've got to think about, don't think social is different to the way you behave as a person. You know, be nice, be, you know, be as you would like to be treated. That's all I say. You know, talk to people how you would like to be spoken to, behave how you would like to be behaved towards, and then hopefully everything would. And that's the same as a leader. You know, you wouldn't, like, if you're leading people and you're in charge of people and you're the leader in a group, you would want to speak to your employees the same way as you would want to be spoken to. And the same goes with digital. You know, you appear on as you would like to be seen. Because that's another thing, is that, you know, like all this trend that what you look like on social isn't always what you are in person. And it's you need to be you. Don't pretend to be somebody else because you think that that's what you're supposed to do to fit in. Be yourself. You know, bring you to the room. And I think sometimes it's hard to do that for some people on social, because they get influenced by what's happening around them. You know, I have to behave like this on if I do a video, I have to be like this, or if I do this, I have to be like that. You know, you just have to be yourself and bring that to the table, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how, but the hour has just flown by.
I know, hasn't it?
So do you want to leave leaders with any tips, tricks, insight, comments?
Probably just don't be afraid to try the tech out, and try to. It's very difficult to say try to keep up with it, because it, like you said, it changes so much. But not to be. I think if you know the basics, if you get the fundamentals right, so if you start using a tool, make sure you know the framework of how it works, and then whatever updates come along, you should be able to manage them. And I think that is for anything that you do. If you know exactly how, it's like riding a bike, isn't it? When you know how to ride a bike, it doesn't matter what you put on the bike, you're still going to know those basics of how to ride it. So it's a bit like, you know, if you're using Facebook or you're using LinkedIn, as long as you know how to use all of the tools that are there, you've checked it out, you've sat and you've looked through all of it and go, okay, so if you want to send a message, you have to go to that bit. If you want to do this, you know, and then if there's an update, you look at it and you go, okay, well, they've just changed the way it looks. It still works the same. So yeah, I would just say that don't get overwhelmed by change, because ultimately the framework is the same.
Yeah. Awesome. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to continue the conversation with you, Anita?
Yeah, they can get me on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Anita Wong. You can just message me on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. Again, that's under my name, Anita Wong. So if you go to YouTube and type me in, hopefully I'll come up. And that's all around sort of using Instagram, Facebook and video marketing to build your business. And you know, those, and just reach out to me, you know, leave a message underneath this video if you want to connect with me, and I'll obviously connect with you that way. But yeah, so LinkedIn or YouTube is pretty much where I'm hanging out these days, and I've got a group on Facebook, so I can pop that after we finish. I'll pop that underneath.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'm gonna end the stream, and then you and I will go back into the room. And
okay, perfect.
Thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you everyone for watching.